as you're listening to the keynote speech of tonight, please feel free to check out our newly designed website. You can go right to evolveded.com and poke around while I'm speaking, but you could also look at the screen share here as I am going through some of the new features at Evolved Education, which I'm so excited that we're able to share all this with you all tonight. So I'm just going to go ahead and get started. I know people will be jumping in and out, and I so appreciate your support. I so appreciate you being here. I want to thank you so much for taking the time on a Monday evening to be here, and welcome to Evolved Education Company's Relaunch. It is so, very unique to be on Zoom doing this relaunch. I wish I was seeing you all in person and really able to connect with you in person, but I appreciate you taking some time to learn a little bit more about where Evolved has evolved. So without further ado, I have a bit of a speech prepared. I hope you don't mind. I'm going to be reading and talking a little bit, but I really wanted to make sure I touch upon some key important points. So let's get started, shall we? Okay. So Evolved Education Company is recommitting to providing families and children access to high quality school support by both focusing our business on a few key areas of experience and by creating more free resources. Many of you have worked with me or known me for a long time, and you know that while I've built Evolved Education from scratch, I've also been known to frequently, as they say in the startup world, pivot. So for a few weeks, we might do classes and then decide we're going to do a book club, or I might be running over to a school to help some teachers out. And it was really great to explore the variety of ways that I could help New York City families. But after all of that exploring, we decided that we wanted to narrow our focus to ensure the absolute best quality of service. Moving forward, Evolved is going to be focused primarily on a few key silos of business. In one-to-one tutoring, we work directly with students from nursery through college in order to understand their holistic academic development and teach them well within areas of challenge or for enrichment purposes. In parent education consulting, we work with parents to teach them about private and public school systems, relocation to New York City, curriculum within a school, special education processes, family and parent coaching. This work helps families to build information and skills and support students holistically by developing their family's skills, knowledges, and resources. In school placement advisement, we support families through understanding their child as a learner and matching them with a best fit private nursery, kindergarten, middle school, or high school. Currently, this consulting also includes COVID-19 consulting for parents who want to explore all of their school options, especially during this pandemic. In terms of resources, we've been really busy this summer creating tools to help parents and guardians. We now have a podcast. It's called Still Learning, where we give you bite-sized tips on all things educational, from kindergarten readiness to how to write a great college application essay. The first episode is available now on our website or on all streaming platforms. Our blog continues to be a space where the experts at Evolved respond to education in the media, the mayor's back to school plan, and anything and everything that we feel requires our full attention. In order to help parents prepare for the future, we have created 2 new books. The first is a guide to New York City tutoring, and it walks parents through how to determine if their child needs a tutor, and if so, what kind of tutoring. The second book is called 10 Steps to Private Admission Success, and this book is also a part workbook and guides parents through the hectic multi-step process of applying to private schools. In the next few weeks, we'll be publishing 2 additional books, a guide on special education in New York City and a book on parent education consulting. The great news is that these books are going to be free and available for download for the rest of August on our website. So you can go to our website and check out the resources section and download these books until September, at which time they'll be available on Amazon for anyone to be reading at their leisure. Additionally, we're hosting we're hosting free webinars on Tuesday evenings, and our webinars are working our way through grade level readiness so parents can learn on how to support their kids over this strange summer and unprecedented school year. During each webinar, we bring in an educator who has taught or is currently teaching in that grade level to give us a real insider perspective into what teachers hope to see from students. So tomorrow is actually our webinar on third grade readiness. So you can actually see on our YouTube channel our kindergarten readiness, our first grade readiness, and our second grade readiness webinars that are available. So those are really great resources for parents, especially at this time. All of these resources are meant to be lightweight and flexible, meaning we're going to be addressing problems as they arise. If schools are open on September 7th and they close on September 14th, knock on wood, please, we're going to talk about it. So if you have subjects that you would like to see discussed, we're always open for suggestions so we can provide meaningful content to our families and to our educators. Speaking of educators, I also wanted to give a quick overview of our newest baby in the business, the Evolved Education Teaching School. Launched in January, it quickly became the place where we created online courses in how to tutor online and how to teach students with special needs online. And that was really a wonderful experience for a company to get involved in that curriculum development. This fall, we're welcoming educator Becky Reback, who is going to take the school to the next level, working actively with our in-house tutor team to meet every other week on topics within teaching and learning and curriculum development. Tutoring and consulting is very specific work that lies outside of traditional education training and professional development. I'm excited to nurture the Evolved Education Teaching School to cultivate a culture of learning within this important area of educational work. Finally, we have launched our Give Back project, which will offer our full suite of services to low-income families or families in need pro bono or on a sliding scale. If you would like to donate your time to the Give Back project or know of families that could benefit, please send me an email or you can follow the directions on our website. Last but not least, all of these resources are available on our brand new website, thanks to Laura Winter's amazing support and help with this project, and Michael DeJoseph, who's also been intimately involved with our website since the very beginning of time of Evolved. And I want to say that this brand new website will make booking an intake, registering for a webinar, downloading our podcast easier than ever before. I think you can agree it really does a nice job of ease for all of those things. In a lot of ways, I want to say that this is the perfect time for the relaunch of an education company because with COVID-19 being here, it feels like education in general is relaunching. Although our mission at Evolved is to ensure the whole child learns well, we recognize now more than ever there are many new scenarios that parents and educators are facing, and how our children do this year will be directly related to how our parents and educators are doing. So parents, for those of you who are listening, I want you to know that as a parent of 3 myself, I hear you and I'm here for you. And for the educators in the room, as an educator myself, similarly, I hear you and I'm here for you. I thought it would be appropriate if you want to stick around and listen a little more to all of this. I thought it would be great if I could use the next piece of our time together to talk in more detail and to really discuss some ideas that families are exploring in response to the COVID-19 crisis and also fall 2020 planning. And I'm specifically going to be talking about hybrid approaches, remote learning, and pods. So I'm going to go ahead and get right into this. I figured you would love to hear a little bit of the ideas that we like to talk about here with our families, and I really appreciate you sticking around and just getting some of this good content. So in hybrid learning, which means that students will be going to school for part of the time and then actually being at home for part of the time, students will perhaps be learning on a computer for part of the week and then in the class setting for the other part of the week. And so I wanted to give you some good ideas for things that you can do as parents. And if you're an educator, you might urge some of your families to do these things right now before school actually begins. In New York City, we don't start until a little bit later after Labor Day. So those of you who are visiting us from other states, you might already be started, but there's still time to be working on some of these things, right? So the first thing I want to say is you could help your student by setting up their workspace at home. So you could, for example, make sure that they have a computer or a tablet that's really working and that they like to use, and that's going to be compatible with their school program. Many schools at this point are coming out with the actual computers that they're going to be using for their school distance learning. And so you'll definitely want to acquaint your child with the exact computer they'll be using for their distance learning work. The other thing I'll say is, especially for older students, it's very helpful to put some pieces of software onto the computer just to limit how many other sites students are going on to. I use on my Chrome extension, Stay Focused or Limit are two options for that. And what it does is it basically blocks or just tells you that you should not necessarily be on a site that's going to suck your time away from your studies, right? The next thing that you want to do is also just make sure that your home has strong internet access. So if you need to work on that and get some more routers or really help yourself with that piece of the solution set, you could say, I would do that now. The next thing I would suggest is having a monthly and a whiteboard, a monthly calendar and a whiteboard available for your students. So a monthly calendar really helps your students to see the entire month of their planning. So if they're going to be in school one day, you can put that down. And if they're going to be home another day, you can put that down. If there's going to be some kind of activity, you can put that down. The whiteboard we use just to give the day's activities or the day's events and the to-dos just for that day, so the student can really see it. Obviously, the way that you communicate with your child will be different per their age. So for young children, you might use pictures, but for older children, you might use words. For emergent readers, you might start to use some sight words as well. I also wanted to say that many students right now are also talking about screen time, and we're starting to talk with students, especially in my house, about screen time and the other activities that one can do that doesn't require them to be on the screen. So some ideas for that would be that you could give your children some time to make phone calls with relatives or friends. They could partner with an organization that supports a cause. You can put energy into improving the world, right? Definitely empower your child to give back to their community. You can create a workshop area in which your child can build or create, such as making arts and crafts or Legos or car tracks, things like that, that they can really own and be creative within and sort of lose the hours if they need some time just away from the structure of their school day, right? Even the older children, I think, really do appreciate having some kind of creative project. And of course, that project's going to be an area of curiosity or an area of strength or something that they really want to delve into. And you can support that by creating a space in their room, even if it's a small space. We have very small spaces in my apartment, and the children have very small spaces to do their work, but it does work, especially when you create it ahead of time. The other thing that I would say is that's helpful is just to create a menu of options for your child to work through when there is downtime. So if you're working in the home and your child is also going to be working in the home, having a laminated sheet or just a sheet of paper where you write down some options that your child could do during that free time. If you're on a call and they come over to you and you really can't talk, you could also have it handy to hand to them so that they can pick a couple of options for themselves, right? Those are some good tools. A mother I was speaking to today was telling me that she actually, with her very young 4-year-old, uses what's called the Pomodoro method, which is a method of working. If you look it up online, you can see it's an actual thing. And what it says is that you're going to work for 20 minutes and then you take a break, and then you work really hard for 20 minutes and take a break. It's a way to really be mindful and thoughtful and energetic within a small amount of time, and then take an actionable break so that you can gear up for the next work period. And what she did with her 4-year-old was she worked on a schedule or routine in which they would each do their own thing for 20 minutes, and then they would do something together for 20 minutes, and then they would each do their own thing for 20 minutes. So in that way, she was able to get some of her work done during the actual day and also spend some time working with her child on the work. I thought that was such a good idea. So I'm going to share that idea with you. The other thing I'll say is you really do want to use this time to collaborate with your child. And I've learned so much from Becky Reback and her coaching on the collaborative problem solving model and in this regard. And I would urge you all just to check out her work, which will be on our website very soon. But it's really so helpful to have ongoing conversations with your child about the hybrid learning. Try to really be nimble, be flexible, change things up. This is a great time just to lean into that notion of you may need to change, you may need to adapt, you may need to do something different based on how your child's responding to what they're doing in school. Remember, when students are starting school from the summer, we usually see some fatigue in the first couple of weeks of school as educators. So you as parents might not always be aware of that, but it does happen, and it's fairly normal coming off of the summer to have that fatigue. So expect it and also just work within it. You know, it's always okay to feel a little tired. We're going to get this done, and then let's take a break, take a rest, take a walk, get some movement in, and really help the routine to become established, right? So all of these things are going to be really helpful and important. I also want to say that it's very important to understand. I just heard from a really great psychologist at one of my children's school today talk about the fact that everyone is feeling a little differently about this time. Some of us are feeling really dysregulated. Some of us are feeling really unsure, depressed, disconnected. Some of us are feeling okay. And some of us are feeling all of those things in one day or in 1 hour, right? And so if he was mentioning that there is some research, I can't remember exactly where it's coming from, but it made sense to me. So I'll share the idea with you, which is that if a child is in a home and the parent is feeling very overwhelmed or anxious or depressed or any of those kinds of things and isn't coping well with it, then that does translate down to the child. And so I think for all purposes right now, what I would like to share as an idea is just that as parents, we can really be in touch with how we are feeling right now and just try to reach out and get ideas for how to handle some of the uncertainty that's going on, some of the things that we're dealing with, right? That's really important so that we can be there for our children, and how we are is going to impact how they are in a lot of ways. And same for the educators in the room. I think that definitely applies, and the self-care that should be happening right now is great. We have a lot of responsibility going on right now. So the other idea I want to talk about, if you would like to keep listening, is this idea of pods, which is another trend and concept that many families are working within to help them do some really important things this fall. So a couple of things are happening, and schools are using them too. So not just families outside of school, but schools are using them in order to group students and to make sure that those particular students are always together. So in case there is a COVID outbreak, that they're not necessarily spreading that to the entire school. So they're really keeping those social interactions very, very small. And that's the concept of the pod. The pod is that you're going to keep your social exposure very small. And perhaps if you're joining a couple of other families together to work on sharing resources such as childcare or educational support or activities beyond the school day, that kind of a thing. You're all hopefully developing some kind of relationship in which you're sharing safety protocols as well as communication around the exposure that you're having to COVID. So at Evolve, we did a huge deep dive into this concept because we were trying to decide whether we were going to offer any services of placing teachers, let's say, or childcare providers and things of that kind. We decided, as you've already heard from the relaunch, that we're continuing to do our one-to-one tutoring and then also our consultations with families around parent education and school placement consulting. But what I want to offer are the ideas that we developed, right? And it's always just about offering the ideas. And I always say to everyone who comes into Evolved that the concept of Evolved is to take the ideas that we have here and you can change them, you can make them your own, you can develop them. That's what they're here for, right? They really are here to be helpful to our families and to our educators. So this is really no different, right? So a pod is a small group of students and families who agree to have small social interactions, gathering socially, but minimizing the risk of COVID-19 exposure. The pod concept is helpful, especially as parents need, childcare and resources during the distance and hybrid days, especially if you're the family that is going to be going out to work every day and you have a child who's home with you for 3 days a week. A pod is a very helpful way to share resources of childcare. So we've found that there's a couple of key questions that you should be asking yourself, which is kind of what is your school day going to look like during remote learning? How much care do you really need during that remote day is the question. So some schools are doing what's called synchronous learning all day, which is where your child's going to be with a teacher all day long and they're going to be engaged with that teacher, corresponding. And then there's also some programs that are going to be giving asynchronous work, meaning they're going to be giving your child videos to watch or homework to complete. And the needs of support within these two programs are going to be very different for your child. So a lot of families are calling us right now to engage in having school support, but without knowing what the program is going to be like, it's very hard to specifically react to the exact need. But certainly you can think about it, right? If you have a child who is going to be engaged in synchronous learning the entire time, then they may not need a tutor the entire time or a teacher sitting next to them the entire time if they already have a teacher. They may just need childcare, or they may need somebody to supervise them and be in the home and make sure that they're safe and fed and that their needs are being met, right? So these are things that we're talking with families a lot about, and it's been really interesting as we've also come to learn about how different everyone's needs really are and how unique and really individualized this process is, which is a lot of what Evolved actually is very comfortable working within. So the other piece that we did develop was safety protocols. So we've started to explore what happens when a part-time teacher goes into a home, and what does that look like, and how do we make that safe? How do we minimize risk? It's really hard to do because if you think about it, a part-time teacher is going to be going into multiple environments during their work, and that in and of itself maximizes the exposure of COVID-19. So then we have to really present that information to families and share with them some ideas for minimizing risk within the home, which includes disinfecting your home, having sneeze guards to separate the children and the tutor, the teacher, the caregiver, having masks and wearing face masks. And so many families are grappling with what that is going to be like for their children. And one of the suggestions I've had with my own children, but also other people's children, is just to start wearing masks and to encourage kids to find the mask that they really enjoy wearing and that they're comfortable wearing, so that when school starts, because if they're in school, they're going to have to wear a mask. And if they're having people come into their homes, they really should wear a mask. It is a way to actually prevent a lot of the transmission of the virus. So having some comfort around that is, I think, very important to this success. And having air filters and bins for the tutors' clothing as they come into the house, and making sure you have a clean bathroom and access to the bathroom that's apart from everyone else, and making sure every student has materials that are just their materials and we're not sharing materials. Having daily temperature checks and regular COVID testing, and having these, forms that people are now pretty accustomed to filling out if you're going to any kind of office setting or workplace environment now. It's pretty commonplace to fill out a daily form. So all of these things are things that parents have to consider if they're going to have a pod happening in their home. There's liability pieces to consider. So it's really not so easy to problem solve some of this, but at the same time, it's necessary, and we all have to really work together to come up with solutions that are as safe as possible, but also that will really meet the needs at this time of our family and our kids. And it's not going to be forever, but it is right now, and I think that there is a way that we can all be mindful of this very real health concern that we're all dealing with. So we did talk a lot about that in our company. The other piece that we've talked a lot about is just engaging in distance learning. So we talked a lot as a company about ways that we can really engage our students. And I've actually gone online and watched some of our tutors in action and really seen how families are grappling with how to engage their students on and over Zoom. And it is really challenging, especially for very young children, where we really see that the way that they learn is through play and through 3D explorations, and through sometimes a human being on top of them and saying, no, we're going to move this over here, we're going to move this over here, right? And so there's really, it's challenging. And I think that we're all grappling with, as a company, how to best serve our families, especially if they want to stay working remotely, and how can we get our students to learn as well as possible. And so we've definitely been, really working on these kinds of studies and just bringing in our own ideas, having each other be the feedback providers so that we can get new ideas in, because that's what it's all about right now, really. So I just want to just pause there and just say that I hope that tonight was an experience where you learned a little bit more about evolved education and the direction that we're going in. I hope that you learned a little bit more about why we're going in that direction. And I hope that you also gained some resources for yourself tonight, whether it be that you're going to download the books later and read through them, and that will help you with tutoring or school placement advisement, whether it means you're going to check out the podcast or our webinars, which are on our YouTube channel, just to learn more about what you need for your child or for a child you're supporting. If you're a parent who, is supporting a child right now, I hope some of these resources that we provided at the end of this talk was helpful, and hopefully gave you some tools to throw into your toolbox. I'm happy to take questions. I'm going to stick around, and if anyone does have a question and wants to throw it into the chat and just dialogue with me around anything, I'm happy to do that. But I'm also happy to give you back some time on your Monday night to be with your families and to do what you do. So I just wanted to say thank you again for joining me tonight. And I'm so excited to, start this school year, no matter what it throws at us. And I'm just so honored that you're all here to join us as we relaunched Evolved. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for supporting us all. I really appreciate it.